Hey all, it's Rachel here with Scientifically Engineered, and I wanted to go ahead and do my September currently inked. I unfortunately didn't do this at the beginning of the month, so this is the end of the month, and this is all of the pens that I used and how they turned out. I did 30 inks, 30 days, so I kind of had a lot of different pens going on, so I only had 5 inked this month. Next month I'll go back to having a lot inked. 2 of the pens I think ran out of ink, which is pretty good because I don't really write too much. So let's just go ahead and get started. This is a Hobonichi Weeks Mega, and this is the September currently inked. Now this is one of the pens that is just about out of ink. This is an Estrabook Estee oversized Rocky Top. You can see there's not much left. And this has a journaler nib. This is one of the first substantial fountain pens that I got, and it is one of my all-time favorites. So let's see, go ahead and do, I'm gonna zoom you in actually. Okay. So this is one of the Estees that Estrabook has that has, I believe, diamond cast resin. It was limited, but I do think that there are still some out there. So I'll do oversized. And this does have the Gina custom journaler nib. This is one of my all-time favorite nibs. Journaler. And it is getting to the end, like you saw earlier, of the ink that I've got in that pen. So it's a little bit drier than it has been all month. It's been inked with one of my favorite inks, which is probably why it's empty. And that's the Tachia Koyame. And this is a great fall ink. It is a orange with a little bit of brown in it. And let's see, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get any ink out of this pen. No. Normally I like to do a little bit of a drop, but she has been used and loved all month. I found that these wrote well pretty much on all the paper that I've used. The main papers that I use are Cosmo Air Light, and then the old Tomoe River and the new Tomoe River paper, which I do feel like pens do behave a little differently. Or on 68 GSM Tomoe River paper, I also find that inks behave a little differently. I would give this pen 10 out of 10s across the board. For flow, 10 out of 10. The color, unbelievable, 10 out of 10. And then, yeah, maybe interesting. Making this up as I go. And there's nothing too crazy about this ink. It does sheen a little, so maybe I'll just give it an 8 out of 10 for that one. But overall, I would give this a 10 out of 10. I will certainly be inking this pen with this ink in the future. Maybe even the near future. Next up is another Estrabook Estee. This is the Punch that they just came out with. I got this at the San Francisco Pen Show, and they had run out of journaler nibs. So I actually have a silver journaler nib, even though all the other trim is gold. That doesn't really bother me. So yeah, beautiful pen. I love this pen so much. It is a gorgeous color. And I love my Estees. So we'll go back, and this is Estrabook. This one also is just about empty. This is the, what did I call this? Punch. Fruit punch or something. And then this also has a journaler nib on it. I will say between the two journaler nibs, this one is a little bit smoother. This one is not scratchy, but it just has more feedback than this one. And so I do actually find that this one sometimes gives me grief a little bit on 68 GSM Tomoe River paper. That's the paper where I find myself having the most trouble. I don't know why. I think it's just because the paper is a little bit harder and smoother. So when you have a really smooth nib, sometimes things get a little goofy. But I mean, I used it, so clearly it was not that big of a deal. I have it inked with, this was actually the first pen I inked. But I ended up switching out the ink. I can't remember what I had in it originally. I think it was Diamine Imperial Purple, but I switched it up for Colorverse Hayabusa. I find that this ink is a little bit wetter, and so I was just having a better time with this ink. And life is too short to keep your pen inked with an ink that isn't doing it for you. For this one, I'll give the flow maybe a 8 out of 10. Color, I thought I loved this color, and I mean, I still do, but I wasn't as interested in it as I normally am. And then for interesting, it doesn't really have any crazy properties. So we'll just give it a 7, I guess. Overall, I'd probably give this an 8 out of 10. This is one of my favorite pens. It's so beautiful. And that journaler nib is always fun. Hopefully I'm not moving too much and making you car sick. All right, I'll do one more with a journaler nib. This, I think, was in my last month's currently inked as well. This is Wood Wonders of NC of North Carolina, I believe. And this is the Oil Slick resin, and it's a matte finish. If you could tell, it's got a low luster to it. And I really like this pen. It's beautiful. I switched the nib out for an Estrabook journaler nib. This is the pink plated one from the Pink Sands. I can't remember if I had done that last month or not, but that's what's in it now. I'll put that in there so you can see it. Beautiful pen. Obviously, I love the rainbow. And it's very comfortable also. So we'll go ahead and do this one. I had some of, last month I had this inked with a Van Diemen's ink, Wonders of NC. And I still had some ink left over going into the beginning of September. So this is actually freshly inked as of probably 2 weeks ago. I'm just gonna put journaler. So it's still got a lot of life left in it, but not for lack of use. And this has just a classic ink in it. This is Pilot Hiroshizuku. And this is Satsuji. Can I fit that right there? This is probably one of their most favorite inks, and for a good reason. Really good flow, beautiful color, sheens of it. 10 out of 10, it's really good. So flow, as with all Pilot inks, very wet. Color, one of my favorite colors, honestly, 10 out of 10. And interesting, it does have sheen in it, in a good amount, actually. So I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. I'm a big fan of this combo. It writes really, really well on all paper. Little smiley face. Very interesting, and I think a lot of people love this bright magenta color. So yeah. And then the next two pens that I've got going on are both Asine pens. And so these are Asine P20, I believe. And I think they're supposed to resemble at least loosely. What is it? A Memento Zero Grande? I'm not sure. These are piston fillers, which I like. They're like 25 bucks or something. And they're very comfortable to hold. So I think this is Asine. Pretty sure it's P20. And I find these nibs, they're not stubs at all, but I think they just have a little bit of a flatter grind on them. This one's a fine. And so I do feel like I get a slight amount of line variation. Nothing like the journaler nib, but something. This one I also have an Urushizuku ink in. I don't love it as much as Setsuji, but those are big shoes to fill. So this is Urushizuku. And this is Soiro, I believe is how you pronounce that. And this one does have sheening as well. It's just not as bright and in your face as this one, but the flow is good. The color is still good, honestly. I'll probably give it we'll give it an 8 out of 10. I don't know. It's pretty good. And then interesting, it is an interesting ink. There is sheen. There is also shading. We'll give it a 9 out of 10. Overall, I'll give this combo, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Honestly, as I'm writing with it now, like really, it's a very good combo, but I just didn't find myself gravitating towards it. This is like a blue lakeish color. It's got a little bit of shimmer or iridescence, maybe I would call it, in the resin. And then lastly is another Asine P20. This is the orange one. I like this color a bit more. This one is a medium nib and it writes very, very, very wet. So we'll go ahead and do this. And another Asine. This is definitely the wettest writer out of all of these by a significant amount, which is good or bad depending on who you are. I don't mind it. So this is a medium. And I have this inked up with one of my favorite inks right now. This ink is a Robert Oster ink, but it is a exclusive with Pen Chalet. And I'm pretty sure I had a bunch of Pen Chalet exclusives in my last currently inked too, but I love the Arizona theme, desert theme. It's just, I think it's beautiful. I'm not from Arizona. I've never been there. I think I drove through Arizona, actually. I lied. I've been in Arizona for 10 minutes. This is called Arizona Copper. I drove through it. I drove to Utah one time from California, and I think I cut through the tip of Arizona. Beautiful. So flow, this is very, very, very wet. Any wetter than this, and I probably would actually not like it. Color is a 10 out of 10. It is beautiful. It's a very warm brown, a little bit orangey, and it does sheen. It's got kind of that like charcoal gray black sheen to it. So I'm going to give it a 10 for interest. I love this ink. You might be like, you're being a little generous with those scores, but let's say, I'll just say it was a very happy currently inked, so I have no complaints. All right. And if you couldn't tell based on how much I've been gushing about this, this is by far a 10 out of 10. This will also be re-inked with this color. This one actually, that's one thing about the ink window. You can kind of see it's about half full. And it'll be re-inked. Maybe it'll even live in there. Okay, so now that they're drying, let's see if I could show you anything fun. You're not really seeing the sheen on the Koyame on camera. It's pretty small. It's just a darker orange sheen. You could just kind of see it with that little shininess off the page. The SD Punch Hayabusa has no sheening, which is fine. It's a standard purple. and looks good. And Satsuji, are you able to see that? Because I can certainly see that. There is quite a bit of sheen on there. Beautiful color, bright magenta, gold sheen. Then for Rojizuku Soiro, it's a lot harder to see that sheen, but there is a magenta sheen on there. This is also a finer tipped pen, so it makes sense that you wouldn't be able to see it as much. And then for that Arizona Copper, you can start to see some of the sheen going on in the dried words. So yeah, that was this month's currently inked. And I hope you all enjoyed. I do really like these Asvine pens. They're a good way if you don't have the money for, or don't just straight up don't want to spend the money on one of the more expensive pens. These guys work just fine. And they're pretty easily accessible, at least if you're in the United States. I think I got mine on Amazon. So yeah, there are those. And next month, I will really try to let you know as soon as I ink the pens so I can give you my first impressions, and then at the end of the month, I'll give you my last impressions. Again, this was 52 GSM. This is the old Tomoe River paper. This is a Hobonichi Weeks. And these were my currently inked for September. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day.